John Wesley may now be well loved as the father of the Methodist Church, but he wasn't always famous nor successful. In 1735, when he was 32 years old, he set sail from England across the Atlantic, where, as an Anglican minister, he was going to pastor the British people who had colonized Savannah, Georgia. There was a sudden great storm at sea, and he was gripped with fear. To his amazement, the German Moravians on board the same ship were not. They were calm and sang hymns of praise. "We are neither afraid for ourselves nor for our children," they said. Wesley could hardly bear to reckon with himself in the face of such faith. Over time, and in many ways, however, he had to search his heart and reflect on his life. He had been brought up in a Christian family. His dad, Samuel, was an Anglican priest. His mom, Susanna, conducted rigorous religious training at home for her children. There was no escaping Greek and Latin proficiency, and John and his siblings were expected to memorize chunks of the New Testament, and they even learned Greek and Hebrew to read the Bible in the original language. There was arguably even a miracle in his early years. As a 6-year-old, John was trapped by a raging fire that eventually destroyed his home. Rescued from a second-story window by a man standing on another man's shoulders, he was a brand plucked from the burning, as he would later say. His mother deemed this a sign from God that there was a special purpose for his life. Wesley went through university at Oxford as a young adult. When he returned later to tutor, he was invited to join as spiritual director the Holy Club started by his brother Charles. It was so called because the members vowed to lead holy lives. They studied the Bible and prayed daily, took communion, and visited prisons regularly. They were labeled Methodists for their methodical ways. In spite of these spiritual disciplines and being an ordained minister, Wesley seemed to always be mired in struggle. He lacked the inner faith he yearned for, and he knew it. "I was indeed fighting continually, but not conquering. I fell and rose and fell again," he wrote. On 24 May 1738, something significant happened. In the evening I went very unwillingly to a society in Aldersgate Street, where one was reading Luther's preface to the Epistle to the Romans. About 9:15, while he was describing the change which God works in the heart through faith in Christ, I felt my heart strangely warmed. I felt I did trust in Christ. Christ alone for salvation, and an assurance was given me that He had taken away my sins, even mine, and saved me from the law of sin and death. By the providence of God, George Whitefield, an Oxford Holy Club friend, was preaching in Bristol around this time. Poor working people, especially coal miners, were coming to Christ in droves. Whitefield needed help to attend to their needs. Wesley was unsure about Whitefield's practice of preaching outdoors, but decided to lend a hand. He soon became the new leader of this growing movement. They were to be, in his words, a company of men having the form and seeking the power of godliness, united in order to pray together, to receive the word of exhortation, and to watch over one another in love, that they may help each other to work out their salvation. At first his followers met in private home societies. As these grew, Wesley started classes of 11 members with one leader, meeting weekly. They started schools for poor children, orphanages, and clinics. Everywhere they could, in whatever way they were able, they strived to do good. Outsiders bullied them and hurled abuse. Wesley even received threats on his life. Nonetheless, he preached unrelentingly, convinced that the world is my parish. He rode on horseback and traveled far and wide, more than 4,000 miles every year. He never shied away from preaching in any place where people could gather, and once even used his father's tombstone as a platform. In total, he is said to have preached 40,000 sermons by the time he died at age 87. Thus, in the midst of clear and present revival, was the Methodist Church born. It eventually transformed the English-speaking countries of the world. Some historians believe it may have saved England from untold civil unrest, such as was seen in France at the time. By the end of his life, he was greatly loved and appreciated. His exhortation to Christians to always press on toward entire sanctification still rings true. He wrote, "I always observe, wherever a work of sanctification breaks out, the whole work of God prospers." May it be so even in our time, and may we be encouraged by Wesley's life and faithful service to also follow Jesus with all our hearts, no matter how difficult the road.